So how does God set Moses free from the fear of his past mistakes, the fear of his past failures, the fear of his past guilt and shame? I'm glad you asked. For starters, God tells Moses that all the men who sought him dead are now dead. Whew, major relief. That ushers me into freedom right away, right? But more importantly, with each victory that God gives Moses over Pharaoh, God is continually proving himself to Moses as Yahweh, the self-existent and self-sufficient God. God who is what he says and who is what he does. And as a result of these victories with God, Moses is now learning more about who God is. Not only learning more about who God is, but also that God can be trusted. Likewise with us. It is the process of walking with God through some of our ups and downs and some of our crazy turnarounds that we grow in our relationship with God, that we grow more in our relationship with him, and that we learn to trust him more intuitively with our own heart, and that we learn less and less to lean onto our own understanding to the point where we grow to acknowledge him in all of our ways so that he indeed can direct our path. It's a process. It's a process. And a lot of times God will start the process by giving us these insurmountable things to do. And so I guess the word this morning is tell God yes. Away with your excuses, tell God yes. Forget about your past failures, tell God yes. There is now no condemnation to those that are in Christ Jesus. Tell God yes. And in closing, because I'm told I'm long-winded. In closing, my own connection with Moses' story. I was content living in New York City in the late 80s, early 90s, having moved from St. Louis, not necessarily fleeing anything horrific, but bringing a lot of baggage with me. Bringing a lot of baggage with me. Sometimes you think just because you go to a new place, new things will happen for you, but if you're taking the same old baggage with you, kind of interferes with the goal, right? So I had the fortune of being educated in the county of St. Louis after being educated in the city. School systems night and day. You know what it means. It's like inner city underfunded schools versus suburban well-funded schools. And that was my introduction to rigorous instruction and education. I was living with my sister and her husband and their daughter. And I had the opportunity, my mother approved, and it was great. My introduction, like I said, to rigorous instruction, but it was also my introduction to domestic violence. And as a result of that, and seeing all of that, and growing up with all of that, which I'll spare the details, but stuff that my children have never, ever seen in their house, I made this vow that if this is what marriage is, why would I want it? So I had vowed not to ever get married. This is the baggage that I'm living with in New York. So I'm having, as the song says, living my best life, right? In New York, not taking relationships seriously, doing things that mom certainly did not teach me to do in terms of respect and respectability. And I found myself in this little church in Harlem. And I found this couple who demonstrated what a real Christian marriage was. And for the first time, I was like, ooh, Lord, I could use one of those. But I knew that I wasn't ready. I knew that I had too much baggage. I knew that my vision was tainted in regards to what healthy, wholesome relationships was. I wasn't even whole. I still had hate and animosity towards my brother-in-law for his drunken, abusive behavior. But I prayed a prayer. Lord, if this is something that you'd like for me to have, fix me. I want this. I'm not ready, but fix me. And again, sparing all the details, but you know we have the encounter. I had an encounter like the encounter's encounter. God jacked me up so bad for 3 days I couldn't go to work. But in that 3-day process, he was chiseling and chipping and shaping and molding and refashioning as I was growing in the word that was being taught. He was freeing me. Long story short, the couple who I admired, the husband actually turned out to be my best man at the wedding. Selena and I have now been married for 31 years. And so when I think about God's faithfulness, all my life, God has been faithful. All of my life, God has been so, so good. And so there is nothing that I have that God didn't give. My outcome, my narrative could have been so different. But it's only because the goodness of God. You never could have told me that Selena and I would be leading other married couples. God used my dysfunctional past, and he allowed me to be free from it so that we can help others be free in their relationships with their spouses. Only God. Only God. And I'm nothing special. I'm just somebody who said yes. I'm just somebody who said yes and who continues to say yes.